almost there. So let me just introduce you to our presenter today. Joining us from the UK is Chris Walklett. Hi, Chris. How are you today?
Good, thanks, Steve. How are you?
Good, very well, awesome. Interesting topic. Could you please share where exactly you actually joining us from today?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Could you tell us where you actually joining us from today?
Oh, where? Yeah. I'm in Colchester. I'm at the University of Essex. So we're actually having our Freshers' Fair today. So it's incredibly busy. And I think nearly as many people from around the world here as there is here, if you know what I mean. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me just tell our audience a little bit about you. So Chris Walklett is an ALT teacher and teacher trainer and a lecturer and a lecturer at on modern history. So his passion is actually using music, songs, sound lyrics in the EAT classroom, and he has given many presentations in the UK and Europe on the topic, including a TEDx talk. So he's well known, and he's an author of the teaching track series of books on using songs and their lyrics in the language classroom. So now, Chris, the floor is yours. You can begin sharing your slides now.
Right. Okay.
Once again, happy World Teachers Day, everyone, and I hope you enjoy today's session.
Lovely, Steve. Thanks for the introduction.
Welcome.
So I'm hoping that my slides are sharing. No, hold on. I need to do something here. Share screen. Here we go. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay. Maybe I could. I will share your screen.
Activating it. Sorry, it's because we had that glitch at the beginning. Okay, now you can.
Thanks, Joe.
Let's try again. Screen share. No, sorry, I shared the wrong thing there.
Yeah, it can be difficult to swap screens. Awesome. Now we can
try that again.
Lost it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we got that one. Nope, it's wrong again. What is going on wrong here? Oh no, that's okay, isn't it?
Yes, you can just click yeah. There you go.
A second.
Awesome. We can see it now.
Good. So yeah, it takes a while to come through, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
That's lovely.
Brilliant.
Okay, so shall I begin?
Yes. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Steve. So hello, everybody. My name is Chris Walklett. I'd like to welcome you to this session, which, as you can see there, is called Music's Ability to Uplift and Calm and How It Can Be Harnessed in the Language Classroom. And first of all, I'd like to say what an absolute privilege it is to be speaking here today at this wonderful British Council event for World Teachers Day, which was actually yesterday, but I know it's a 3-day long session. I think this is the last session of day 2, so the lucky people that we are, there's time for a third and final session tomorrow. So that's something for us to look forward to. So are my slides sharing? Oh, cool. There's a bit of a delay. Okay. Okay, so the tumultuous times of the early 21st century have affected us all. Including in this, I think, has been exposure to the long-standing prejudices and injustices that many continue to face, as well as increasing awareness of the extent of the climate catastrophe. Then, COVID lockdown and its many resultant difficulties hit, further impacting not only on our physical, but also our mental health, peace of mind, and also our general well-being. It was a time in which I think it was hard for even committed optimists, let alone the rest of us, to see past present difficulties and into a brighter future. These trying times, though, bore witness to some of the better aspects of humanity. Few will forget the images of singers and musicians who were serenading neighbours from their balconies during lockdown. Thus, the gift of music was demonstrating its power to unite and uplift. This session today will explore how we can use songs and music to not only inform and challenge politically and culturally, but also to uplift us and to calm our spirits. For it is my belief that never has there been a better time in which to make use of the wisdom and solace that music can bring. But the question remains as to how to harness all this resource has to offer in the classroom. And that's what I'd like to grapple with today. In a nutshell, what we'll be looking at today come under the headings of what, how, and why. So that is what we can do with songs. That's the scope that this resource offers in the classroom. And how we can use music and songs to educate students, to change their viewpoint or their mindset, or to show them how things are different, to ultimately, I think, to uplift them, to give them hope in these trying times. So in this section, I'll be providing example materials to show you the scope of what can be done. And also why as well. So why? So that is, you know, what do the educationalists and theorists have to say about using this resource? Also, if time permits, I will end by giving you some golden rules, some advice for the use of this resource. I've devised this session today to be one with audience participation. So hopefully you've viewed the pre-event video, which I put out there and is on the Facebook page for the British Council, in which I outlined the task that we're going to do today, or the tasks rather. But if not, no worries, because I'll go through it anyway and you'll be able to participate as we go on. Something just to briefly note today, because of the nature of this session, being shown live on the internet through the British Council, I am not able to use lyrics during the session, nor songs or music due to copyright. Actually, in my live sessions, I would normally, of course, usually use these because this resource is really, it makes sense when you're talking about this for obvious reasons. But what I will do is I'll refer to songs and I'll give QR codes, which of course you can take a quick photo of and store. And also some URLs because they work well. And I believe the wonderful British Council people behind the scenes are going to put them in chat as well for you as we go on, which obviously you can take note of. And of course, you're welcome to get in touch with me after the session if you'd like to discuss anything that we've talked about in the session in more detail. So, of course, at the end, I'll give you my contact details. So going on to what then? What can we do with songs? Well, I think the answer to this really is everything. It's really as limitless or limited as one's imagination. So we're not just talking about more formulaic activities, I think. Perhaps you could call them pedagogically problematic activities, I think, like gap fill. Also, of course, you can do lots of fun things with songs. These are really great, aren't they? So you can do lip syncing, you can do mimicking, or you can do full singing along, depending on your class and how interactive they are. You can do full-on karaoke. You can also do lots of listening and pronunciation activities as well. You can look at lexical sets within songs on particular themes. You can analyze those themes, so you can do thematic analysis of the songs themselves. Basically, you can do all of this and much, much more. I think that this sketch note doodle thing done by Emily Bryston after attending one of my sessions best sums up the power and the purpose of music. She noted that music's power is what it does is it brings people together, and it helps achieve what educational psychologist Martin Seligman called the 5 pillars of well-being, namely that this resource, which we called this PERMA because this was the abbreviation of the first word of these things that this resource does. But that music, it creates positive emotions. It makes people feel good. It also fosters engagement and flow. It can help form relationships, authentic connections between people. It has meaning and it's purposeful. and it can lead someone taking part in this in any sense, whether they're a musician just singing along or just appreciating, to a sense of accomplishment and achievement. And if you want to find out more about that's called the PERMA model, and it's in an article called Flourish, but I'll do all the links to the bibliographical items at the end. Moving on fairly briefly now to the section that we're going to be looking at mostly, which is the section on how. We all want to know how to do this. So if you watch the pre-event video, you will recall that I set the task to think about the following 3 questions, and also try to think of example songs that could be used to achieve this. So first of all was the question of how to use music and songs. Well, music and songs can be used to educate. So to educate your students as to what is happening in the world, in their country, in their area, in a particular part of something that you're looking at, or anything really. Also, it can be used to uplift. So it can change the way that students look at situations, and it gives them a sense of perspective or calm on that situation. It can also use them to change, really, to change the way that they look at situations. I got those two bit mixed up. Sorry about that. Yes, so we're going to look at those examples, and they were the things that I asked you to do in the pre-event task, if you remember. So the question, first of all, was how can I use music and songs to educate my students as to what is happening in the world, my country, my area, etc. So what I'd like you to do now is to, first of all, just jot down. So we're not talking about specific examples yet. We'll do that next. Can you put in the chat any ideas that you have for how you can achieve this? And I shall be monitoring the chat.
Yeah, I'll be doing it for you.
Oh, okay.
If you
Yeah,
like me to, yeah.
all right, yeah, because I can't see it from here.
Yeah. So we started to get some answers.
Great.
Ahmed said to start my classes. Have Asma introducing new vocabulary. Shadi said to make math actually more memorable.
Yeah.
A leading activity to analyze the text. Someone like to choose a song that reflect the theme. Some to improve vocabulary, to learn new words. We have Paul mentioning that study lyrics that are relevant to what we teach. Some are referring to climate change as well. Yeah. And we have Mahal just mentioned that it helps them to memorize and remember things. Yeah,
she has some lovely ideas there. Yeah, great. So the next part of the question, I'm just going to see if anyone can think of, this was in the pre-event task, an example song that could be used for education about something that's happening in the world generally, their country, their area, etc. Does anyone have any ideas for songs?
The Earth song, Old MacDonald.
Yeah, so Michael Jackson for
FIFA World Cup music 2014.
That's got an environmental slant, hasn't it?
Yes. We Are the World, again, Michael Jackson. Imagine by John Lennon. Yeah.
Some good ideas there,
yeah.
Anything more coming?
Got Zombie by the Cranberries.
All right, yeah.
Don't Worry, Be Happy by Bob Dylan.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So we'll move on from that. So what I've done here is in these 3 sections that we're looking at, I've just found a song, and I've had some ideas about what you could do with that song. Now with this, the layout is going to be similar for all songs. I've done a QR code there if you don't know the song and you want to check out the video via YouTube. And I've done a QR code there for looking at the lyrics via AZ Lyrics. So interestingly, someone said John Lennon Imagine. This is John Lennon's son, Julian. So this is a song from 3 decades ago. That's rather depressing, really, given that things haven't improved, because this is about environmental concerns. We can't play the song, as I said already. We can't watch the video or look through the lyrics, but all the information is here. But to give you an idea of what you can do with this song, and I approach these songs differently all the way through. So you can have a first listen to the song. You can ask your students without telling them in advance, right? And perhaps even without the video, because that gives other clues, what they think the topic or the theme of the song is. You can then have a second listen, where, of course, several listens can build up an understanding. You don't want to be too many, because that might bore them, but a second listen can build on the initial understanding. They can look at sort of the examples of Earth's problems that are mentioned in the song, for example, and in the song, if you know it, it includes things like deforestation, talks about the hole in the ozone. Like I said, this is from 30 years ago. And it talks about famine and the reasons for that connected with environmental concerns. The students can then go to the lyrics via a QR code like this and check to see if there was anything they missed out or the wording that was used. Then they can analyze, for example, the language. You know, what language has the songwriter decided to use to describe these kind of problems? You know, so that's a good kind of skimming and scanning techniques, probably scanning, actually, to be honest. Then they can pick a line from the song and explain what the message is in that line. Now, of course, I can't pick a line myself because of the aforementioned copyright things, but if you go to the lyrics there, you'll see that there are certain lines in this song that are very interesting to discuss, you know, because songwriters often refer to things in particular ways that isn't maybe the obvious way of referring to it. So sometimes there's double meanings or this kind of thing. For a more intensive piece of work, possibly with a higher level student, they can focus on the use of metaphor and personification, which is quite prevalent in this song. You can ask them more generally, you know, to find those examples. Why are those devices being used in such a way? And what effect does it have? So you're really kind of analyzing, I suppose, language there and songwriting language too. You can also kind of do an extension activity. One I would have shown, but I couldn't because of copyright, was quite a famous one where you've got a picture of a child kind of picking up the surface of the sea. It probably doesn't make much sense to explain it, but underneath there's like loads of plastic bottles and such like. And the heading on that is, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. So you could use that or something similar to spark discussions, further wider discussions on environmental issues. So there you're very much using songs as a way into a discussion on a topic. And I suppose it's worth asking people on the chat if they can think of any other songs on the subject of the environment. In fact, we've already had a couple, didn't we, before, when we were talking about things generally.
Yes, absolutely.
Does anyone have any other ideas about songs that come into their head that are on the subject of the environment that they could use?
We get We Are the World for now, as we have to look at for now. Some other comments, but they're not really referring to actual songs.
Okay.
Some ideas, you know, about what to do.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Good. Fair enough. Okay, yeah. We'll crack on if that's all right. So the next part of the pre-event task to get you thinking about this kind of thing was how you can use music and songs to uplift students, to give them a sense of perspective and calm in the kind of times that we're living through, which I talked about at the beginning. Any songs come to mind? So yeah, an example song that anyone can think of that could give students a sense of perspective or calm, or how to use songs to achieve that. Anything coming through there, Steve?
Yes. Sorry, I was on mute. I just realized I was on mute. So, but we've got some. Yeah, quite a few. We have "Let It Be" by the Beatles.
Yeah.
"It's My Life" by Bon Jovi. Enya, "Only Time."
Okay.
Yeah, "Mercy Me" by Marvin Gaye.
Yeah. Mercy, Mercy Me, the Ecology. Yeah. Good choice. Yeah. Lovely.
"I Believe I Can Fly" by R. Kelly. "I Believe I Can Fly."
Yeah.
"We Are the World" comes back. I think Michael Jackson is quite popular around.
Great.
"Another Day in Paradise" by Phil Collins as well.
Yeah. Lovely. What I find with these sessions, when you get people from all around the world, is so brilliant, because everyone's music taste is different, and there's always songs. I've got a bit of an encyclopedic knowledge, but there's always songs that I don't know, or I know of them and I don't know how they link. So it's always lovely to hear people's thoughts. Yeah. Okay, so I'll go through my idea here, and this is quite a different approach, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk through the use of this song. So this is Fleetwood Mac's "Don't Stop." It's a well-known song from sort of mid-70s, and here's again is the QR codes for the song and for the lyrics. But what happened here is a colleague of mine who works in the UK with ESOL students. So these students are mostly students that are refugees in the country, asylum seekers and the like. What she's done here, she's called Carol, and I think she might be listening now, so hi Carol. Yeah, what she's done is done a kind of a profile of the class. So she explains that these students, how old they were, 16 to 19, that they were LACs, which means, oh, I've forgotten, looked after, oh, the C, I've forgotten, oh dear. But they were not there with their families, generally speaking. They were kind of disconnected to each other. They were kind of unsure about where their lives were headed, as you can imagine from the description I gave there. And there was a sense of pessimism, she said, and little hope for the future amongst them. There was an added problem of there being not any common language apart from very different levels of English, you know, from not too bad to quite, you know, basic. So amongst these young people that were all there in the UK, the situation was that they were alone, really, in a strange country. They were trying to survive, and they were trying to build a future. So the idea was to, as well as lots of other activities on this particular day, to have a lesson outcome of using a song to inspire friendship, to promote hope, to put forward a message of not giving up, and a message of looking to each new day with kind of renewed hope of possibilities. And there are lots of other songs as well. I've put another example there, "Wings" by Birdie, which I think is a very beautiful song that also does the same thing. In terms of activities, there was the idea to, I think, you know, there were quite a mixed class, as I recall it, with some quite low-level students. So there was an idea that it could be introduced with kind of warm pictures, things like sunshine, pictures of rainbows, smiley emojis, thought bubbles, etc. And that these could be used to draw out some of the vocabulary that they were going to come across. Vocabulary-wise, it's not a difficult song at all. Of course, it's not the lowest level of all, but it's not far off. And that these kind of images and this imagery could be used for kind of a kinesthetic activity later, where the kinesthetic, you know, where the students move around and the benefits that has educationally. And in terms of the lesson staging, it started off basically like this. If a friend was going through a bad time, depersonalizing it, right? So you're going through a bad time, but you're saying, if a friend of yours is going through a bad time, what advice would you give about things getting better? So teaching them as well as aiming towards what they're talking about there. But particular vocabulary, things like cheer up, look on the bright side, things will get better, etc. And then looking at very simplistic grammar that occurs within the song, and that it's useful to promote. So, for example, the formation of what goes after stop. So you don't say stop to do something. Well, you can, but it's got a different meaning. So you have stop plus ing, so don't stop. And they can continue that. Don't stop dreaming, don't stop hoping, don't stop believing, etc. And the students can produce language, some of which will be in the song, which of course they haven't heard yet. Then they can do some match-up activity with rhymes that appear in the song, matching up words like so smile and while, day and may, and you can see the other examples there. The song has a really nice basic AABB rhyme scheme. So we have two rhymes the same followed by two rhymes the same that are different from the other two. AABB, if you know how that works. So they could then listen back to the song and they can check those rhymes after they have matched them up. Then you can get them to, obviously, at some stage there is a listening activity. I haven't particularly talked about that, but that's always a possibility. So after, perhaps you can get them to write a few words. You can get them to produce some lyrics or a poem about things getting better. And you can produce a kinesthetic activity where you can ask them to act out certain things that appear in the song. Wake up, you know, what do you do when you wake up? Smile, you know, open your eyes, you know, look at the day. So on to the last of these three examples. How can I use music and songs to change the way students look at situations? Very quickly, if anyone can think of any songs that fit that criteria.
Looking at the chat, I think I have some answers coming in. I think someone said that, you know, when they have a bad day,
yeah,
they didn't really sort detail.
It's okay. If there's not really any ideas,
yeah,
because obviously we're conscious of the time. That's lovely.
Yeah.
I've got an idea here for a song that you might not know. You might have known the other two, but this is kind of lesser known, but it's a really beautiful song by a band called Anthony and the Johnsons. The chap actually has a different name now, but and once again, the song QR code and the lyrics are there for you to check as we go along. Now, this is approaching a song from a different way in terms of what we do with a song. So this is an idea for a warmer, a way to get them to discuss the themes in the song. So what I thought here is you could start with a statement, right? And this is the statement. The recent COVID-19 pandemic has made many of us, some of us for the first time, confront the notion of death, of people in general, and the mortality of those that we love, as well as considering our own mortality too. Obviously, this is a higher level than the last activity because of the language used there. And just get them to, in groups, to discuss whether they agree with that or not. And then, because we're looking at the mortality of things, right? Once again, trying to do things a step away, not just we're going to talk about someone dying. You know, this is much more nuanced than that. So aside from the people around you, so your family, loved ones and friends, so we're excluding the people that, you know, that when we lose them, they upset us greatly, you know, that we grieve for. What would you miss most about the physical world? Tying back really to the environmental message in the first song. So just think about that for a moment. Give them some time. Play some background music. Might not even be the same song. Could be, though. Get them to think and make notes. And then to turn their thoughts into sentences. So, you know, I would miss animals, particularly birds and cats. This is true for me. I love cats and I also love birds. Most because, and finish that off. Say what it is that they mean to you. And then discuss your ideas with other students. Everybody will have a different take on things. So we're approaching there the subject from quite a different way, and approaching the song and the way we structure the song in a different way. Now, going to the song itself, we can have a whilst, so it's a whilst, after, and then further activities. So while you're listening to the song, what was the mood of the song? So they're then producing adjectives to try and describe this wonderful song, which of course I can't play, but you're welcome to. After listening to the song, consider things like any words or phrases that kind of, or things in the song, that things that he would miss that he's saying in the song. Do you recall from this first listen? Listen to the song again as you become more familiar with the topic. You know, what do you think the song is really about? You haven't really told them. You started with that activity about missing things. But it's interesting what people say about this. I always assumed this was a song about a person and what they would feel if they died, like maybe a dying person, a song from someone with a terminal illness. It turns out that's not right. But there was clearly a reason why I and other people thought that. And then it's a very interesting thing to look at. Here is an idea of how you can get students to talk indirectly about what's concerning them. It's a well-known idea, and it's not mine. It's certainly accredited to other people. I'm not exactly sure who came up with this first, but I've sort of using this for the subject of music, really, music and songs. So what you do basically is you get students to write down an issue that's worrying them or concerning them on some paper, and then scrunch it up. So you're not looking at it. They're scrunching it up. They know no one's going to look at it, or they think that, and then they throw it into a bin. So a bin could be something more hygienic. And what you can do when the lesson ends, so this is for a future activity, is you can collect these. Now, you're not trying to match up the handwriting with the student. You're not doing that. You're looking for ideas of things that they've divulged here when they didn't know that they were being listened to, for possible material that you can construct future lessons of. And it's a way of addressing these issues a lot less directly, I think. What I've done here is what everybody likes and what we were doing earlier. I've produced a couple of slides with lists of songs on them, really, and in brackets what I think they're about. So these are lovely songs. They're meaningful songs, I think. Obviously, there are millions and millions, probably billions of songs out there. But ideas that for you that could come up. So if, for example, if the student put, oh, I feel hopeless and life's not fair, you could target that, the wonderful Isley Brothers Harvest for the World, you know, which I actually heard when I was out running this morning, and it just brings you to a place, you know, if you're feeling down, it lifts you up, you know, as music should do. So there's a whole bunch there. Not a bad idea to take a photo of that. I think this is obviously being recorded for British Council anyway, isn't it? And available afterwards. And a second slide there with some further recommendations. Not all of these topics will appeal to you or your students. Some of them it might be inappropriate in your country and culture. But I think there's ideas here for everybody if you pick and choose from these. I always like to do that because it seems nice to offer ideas all the way through. So we come lastly to the why section. So why do theorists and commentators, what do theorists and commentators say about the use of this resource? In other words, why use this resource? Well-selected songs can bring experiences and voices other than the teachers into the classroom, okay? This is what we want to do. We're teachers are facilitators. We should know that on World Teachers' Day. We're not clapping ourselves on the back. We're saying, I think, we're facilitators for education for the students, you know, because that can bring awareness of difference and our recognition of similar universal themes and experiences among us all. There's a reference here and there's a full reference later. Songs then can, using this resource, can encourage students to think by examining, evaluating and challenging the assumptions, premises, interpretations that others have taken for granted. If we're talking about the kind of genres you can use, I think pretty much anything. But White and McCormack have suggested that punk, hip hop, rap, grunge, alternative are examples of genres that continue to provide considerable social commentary and historical references. And you'll notice that was written in 2006. So there's been lots of different musical genres since then that you could add to that. For example, grime, you know, and others. And why can't we be friends using music to teach social justice? Levi and Bird examined the positive uses of songs at all school levels, elementary, middle, and high schools, as well as in higher education, in different disciplines and for different purposes. And they conclude that music as a resource for exploring social justice is either overlooked or underused, believing that it can help educate and it can lead to a greater understanding of social justice issues. And that listening to music can inform an individual's belief, their actions, and their worldviews, and that using well-chosen songs can lead to discussing a range of societal problems and lead to them accepting others, challenging discrimination, examining privilege, and rejecting violence, which I think has to be a positive thing. So you've had the theory and a few examples. Now, what I'm going to briefly explain is what's in the post-session task that you get offered on the British Council website. So what I'm asking people to do on this is to select a song with a strong, clear theme message for you, that's suitable for your class's levels. We had examples there, but it's always best if it comes from you. Or, okay, if you get a chance to do the bag of issues idea from your students. Use some of the ideas in the session or ones that occurred to you whilst in this session to construct materials that could be used in one of your lessons. And think, you know, how could I start this activity? You know, try and mix that up, try and vary it a bit, as I think I demonstrated with the 3 quick examples that I did there. What language should I focus on, if at all, right? You don't have to focus on language in a song. It can be, although, you know, can just be theme, although theme by definition will be some language, you know. And what would I do with the theme in the song? Why have I chosen this theme, and where am I going to go with it? You know, like the example of looking at posters after the salt water song that was about the environment. So that is what I'd like you to do for your post-session activity. And I've categorized this into different categories. So first of all, firstly, songs to uplift and calm. So that's might include songs with positive messages. We had one of those at least today. Songs that deal with overcoming difficulties. Songs that make us change the way we feel about a situation, right? As these 3 were the ones that were illustrated earlier, right? And also, you could select songs to educate and enlighten people culturally, politically. I don't mean party politically, I mean in terms of what's going on in the world. We need to be aware of that, don't we? So that could be songs that challenge convention in some manner, if you feel that's appropriate in your situation. Songs that help us understand diversity, once again, if you feel that's appropriate and safe in your environment. Songs about sustainability, the environment, etc. So you can choose from one or both of those to come up with ideas. Now, I don't know how we're doing for time, so I'm going to ask Steve, because this how we're doing for time is going to depend on how I approach this activity.
I think you can approach this activity. You can actually get going with the activity. We have about 18 minutes.
Oh, okay, you've got plenty of time. Okay, that's okay. That's good, because I left this one as if we've got time left. If not, I would just talk through it very briefly. I realized that when you are using songs, from talking to hundreds, if not thousands of people about this, people do struggle. Some people do struggle with it. You know, where do I start? How do I do it? So what I did is I came out with 10 golden rules that I thought people could refer to help them get their heads around, as the expression goes, how to use this resource. And they are thus. And I will talk through these one at a time, fairly briefly, because of time, but to give you an idea. So first of all, there is the idea of using them with care and consideration. So choose a song with care and with consideration. Familiarize yourself with it, listen to it, by which I mean really listen to it, right? Not on a surface level. Be respectful with the song of the creative process that it's gone through. It hasn't been knocked up in 5 minutes, although some of them are because it's inspiration, right? But often they're worked and reworked, you know, so be respectful of that, of the process, really. Immerse yourself in a song you're going to use and all it has to offer. If you use a song and you don't really know it, you don't really know what it's about, you don't know all the language, and you don't know, you know, this, that, and the other about the song, you're going to struggle and it's going to become fairly obvious to the student, I think. And don't cut this process short. You know, this is really, really important, which is why it's the first consideration there. The second one in that list there is attention to lyrics. So locate the lyrics. As I said, I don't want to promote anybody, but AZ lyrics I use because there's no advertising on there. All the others have loads of pop-ups and stuff, which isn't ideal. Read through them. So get to know the lyrics by looking through them. Have another listen to the song with the lyrics in front of you. So now you're listening and you're reading at the same time. And what you'll find, what everybody finds, even with songs they think they know, is that some of these songs will be different. The lyrics will be different from what you thought. And that's because of what's known as misheard lyrics, aka mondegreens. And it's a cause of much fun, actually, when you construct activities like this. So be prepared for a surprise or two when you do that. Next up is the third one down, relevance of themes. So think about the song's themes and think about what language emerges from it or what language you want to concentrate on in it. You know, you don't have to you have to cover all the language. It's you that will choose what you think is appropriate for your students, right? Think about, you know, does it fit into any subjects that are taught? Does it fit into any topical or current events that are happening in your country, in the world generally, or whatever? And obviously, if the theme is more important, then you can do your searches like the lists I gave there, or an online Google search to find songs that fit into that subject. And of course, have a listen to them to make sure it's appropriate. Next up is mood. Think about what song the mood of what mood the song evokes. Got it the wrong way around there. So you know, we did that with the Anthony and the Johnsons one. You know, how do you feel when you're listening to this kind of song? And I think students really appreciate songs with a kind of a mood. Not all songs have a mood, I think, but some of them do, and students can appreciate, you know, letting the music soak into them. Think about linguistic outputs too. Think about the conjuring up of adjectives, and the mood can be applied there because you can get a student to draw pictures related to that. Think next about whether you need the video. Okay, there's not a rule that says you have to use the video. Consider whether you'd like to use the video or not, and at what stage you'd like to use it. The video can set the scene well, sometimes it doesn't, right? It could be that the video works fine with the sound down. Okay, done that a few times with introductions to songs where the video connects very clearly to the main themes of the songs. But I definitely think it's a fallacy that students need a visual element. We tell ourselves they do. That's not the same as them needing it. Okay. Next, we go into order and staging. So this is very important. Think about what you're going to do and what order you're going to do it in. So are they going to listen to the song first? Are they going to look at the lyrics first? Are they going to think about the theme first and mix it up? So you don't go, oh, dunk, 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 I'm going to do it in that order. They will get bored. You just have to give a little bit of thought of what does actually this lend itself to? So don't follow a set formula. Let the individual song and your teaching experience, your knowledge of the students and what they like and maybe what they don't like, guide you to the activities that are going to suit and to what staging you use with that. Next is linguistic possibilities. So what language really kind of grabs you from the song? What is sort of unmissable? And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm searching for a tense here, I think. Although some do, sometimes the particular grammar item does leap out, but often not. Often it's things like lexical sets connected with themes, you know, that you can do something with. So really what you're looking at there is what stands out, making the most of that. Next, I would say boundaries. So I think be prepared to be the boss. Okay, maybe you could call that the maestro, right? There's something about songs where you have to have a certain sense of control in order for the activity to be fun and for them to learn through it. You can't just sort of get them listening to the song and looking up the lyrics. That's not going to achieve anything. You wouldn't do that with another kind of activity, I don't think. So you set the rules for what's done and when it's done, as we talked about in the last one in staging. But make sure, of course, within that you come over as more of a music freak than a control freak. Ultimately, this is about their learning, about their enjoyment through this resource. So don't, even though that's important, don't elevate it above that. Next, and this is tied to the last one, make sure that what you do with songs is student focused. So take time to brainstorm ideas that will suit your students, the students that you know, the ones that are in front of you. You're not doing this about theoretical students, right? Think of the ones that you actually have. So think with your students, you know, what activities will they like? Those 12 that sit in front of you on a Monday morning or whatever it might be. What activities will challenge them, you know? And then think about how you can adapt what's in the song to your teaching styles, to your students' hopes and expectations from such a lesson. And finally, easier said than done, I understand, but is to exude confidence. So try to use songs with confidence. And one of the ways in which I think I can encourage you to do that is by just telling you of the experiences that students have when using songs. They often come back to you and say, how, you know, 6 years ago, you did that song with me. You're like, what? You know, they remember it. It's so memorable. This means it really has something special. So songs are a fantastic text type. They've got a real pedagogic purpose. But I think the problem a little bit is people have disconnected with them. They've used them in a formulaic manner, and they've overused certain aspects like gap fill and the like. Just a thought to end on, to make you think about the impact that songs have. So the impact that songs have is much more than the individual words, isn't it? The lyrics within a song. As Yip Harburg, who was writer of the famous paean to Optimism and a Brighter Day, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, from, of course, from The Wizard of Oz, he wrote, words make you think a thought, music makes you feel a feeling, but a song makes you feel a thought. And just think of the power of that when you use songs in your classroom with your students. So that brings us close to the end. Here's a list of the sources of inspiration. They were mostly the ones that were used in that slide where we talked about the theoretical use. And also I'd like to give a thanks to Emily Bryson for the use of her slides, for Carol Samlau for her input and ideas in several of the slides. And just got a slide here with QR codes and also your URL links, which I believe can be given. I've got a website, which is Teaching Tracks, all sorts of stuff on there, old talks, ideas, you name it. There's a Facebook group, very popular, very busy, something happening on there all the time. And the URL is there. That's called Creating Uses for Songs and Song Lyrics. I've also got a YouTube channel in which old talks and other things are on there. And also, just after, I think it was in January, just after Christmas, I did an interview with Karen Waterson from the British Council, and that is still available on that link there. So that concludes that really, and what I'd like to do is ask you if there's any questions.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the presentation. We have a few questions actually.
Great.
In the Q&A, which I will just gonna pick. I think the first one, because I've actually mixed two questions that sort of focus on the same idea.
Yeah.
So it's really about how can we use music effectively for either low-level learners,
Yep.
or for more advanced learners, which are usually adults? Can we?
So for very low and very high learners, it's a very interesting question. I'll tell you why, because the last IATEFL, that's exactly what I did my talk on. Because a lot of the songs, as probably noted by the questioner there, a lot of the songs are incredibly useful in the Bs and stuff, and the top and lower level, that's not the case. But in terms of low levels, because obviously it's two questions in one, there are lots of different ways to approach that. I think the thing to say is you don't have to use all of a song. You can just use bits of it. You can gain from listening from a song, just from understanding a few words and enjoying it, or learning a couple of words and a phrase, or learning how the sounds go together. But in terms, it is a very good question. Really, you need songs probably, first of all, without many vocabulary items in them, with quite a bit of repetition, I would say as well. Probably at a low level, you're looking at, not being too challenging in terms of the types of vocabulary and the links together between the words. So quite well enunciated. Some musical acts enunciate and pronounce more clearly than others. Certainly those. At the top end, that's a completely different matter. But you need to be, really challenging them, I think, on things like idiomatic expressions that are relevant to the type of English they want to use, or where they're going to be using it. Maybe, something very fast flowing, like if you're a very, very high level student, it's going to be a real challenge to understand rap, for example, right? Certain types of rap, where you get lots and lots of words delivered quickly, over in a small space of time, really.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Let me just share with you the next question.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite interesting, because it's about how would you handle situations where students with have no interest in music or video for learning.
Okay. Well, when you're using music in the classroom, you're not necessarily, or you're not at all playing music all the time. You're just using it as a way in. I think it's very unusual to find someone who's not into music at all. It's a bit like sort of saying, I don't like film. It's not something you generally come across. It could be that they're worried about, or they're not into particular genres. But you're not using music in the classroom. You're not trying to get them into music. In fact, you're not really trying to educate them about music. It's just, that's the way you're facilitating the language. So as we talked about with the themes. So yeah, so I mean, it's just like every other resource. I think you're using it as a way in to particular themes and looking at particular language.
So the next one is, how do you think teachers should encourage their students to actually write their own lyrics, and to eventually create songs? Yeah,
it's a valid activity. I think it's very much a question of if you think your students are going to like it. Like we said, is that something they're going to be interested in? Yeah, but you could structure that without needing to be an expert. I think, if you're doing basic rhymes, you're doing how things scan, right? I mean, I was interested about looking at ChatGPT and whether it could write lyrics. And I don't know if I'm not very good at using it. I found it couldn't do it to any convincing manner because it couldn't scan the lyrics. So they would be very, very wordy, and you can't sing that. That isn't what you sing, even though you get quite intellectual songs and using quite big words. The understanding of scanning didn't seem to be something that ChatGPT did. So I suppose you could look at that. You could say, let's see what ChatGPT can do. Nothing very good. Let's see what it's doing wrong, what it can't do. And how can you? What's the problem? Is it too many syllables? Is it, why isn't that sounding right when you deliver it? Obviously, if it's just words, then it's poetry, then the delivery is not required there. But if it's lyrics, it's got to kind of fit into a pattern. And you know, I can give you lines that you can't fit them in musically. They doesn't make any sense. And that's why you get things like common use items, you know, coulda, woulda, shoulda, because, you know, I would like to, I wanna is easier to scan. I would like to, you know, it could be done in a very posh older song, but otherwise you're not going to scan on the lyrics. All sorts of things you could do. Writing is, as a spin-off, having examined that, you know, the use of the songwriter and then going spinning off and you're producing something yourself is definite one. You can also do the classic fold over activity where they write a line each and you leave the last word and then they've got to rhyme the last word, you know, something like that and then you can try and sing it as a class together. All sorts of possibilities, endless.
I'm just going to quickly, because this is something that has been coming in quite often into the Q&A box. It's really, you know, related to culture. Because people are asking, you know, what about songs with culture sensitive topics? How would actually teachers deal with students in those instances?
Yeah, well, that's the same for every resource, isn't it? If there are sensitive topics that you don't do in your country, you wouldn't do them. Just like you wouldn't do them in a reading text, just like you wouldn't do them in watching a video, you wouldn't do them. So yeah, I mean, so that's what I said about know your song. So if you just happen to pick a song that you didn't think is about, you thought it was about something else and it's about a sensitive topic, then that's probably because you haven't done your legwork in advance. So if in doubt, don't use it, right? But no, you just avoid it. You find out what your class needs or what they'd want, like the bag of issues, what they'd like to talk about there, or what's going on. You know, you can find that out in advance from your class without them necessarily knowing you're going to do anything with the song with it, and then try and find songs to fit. So you know that that's what you're doing is safe. I wouldn't endorse forcing anything on anybody ever, and I don't think anybody should. But there's no reason why songs do that any more than others. Songs are as varied as any other medium, if not more.
Awesome. I think we running out of time now for additional questions. But thanks, Chris, for your presentation and for your valuable insights. I would also like to thank our dedicated team behind the scene, of Joe and Anne, for actually moderating both Zoom and Facebook. And thanks for all of you who joined us today and for your participation. We've got tons of messages in the chat. Unfortunately, some were actually questions that we couldn't answer, given the time allotted. But just to know that our next webinar is scheduled tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. UK time. Let's take a short break and come back tomorrow for more engaging session. So if you're on Zoom, the room will actually close, and you can access the next session tomorrow. But if you're on Facebook, you can also attend the next session tomorrow on Facebook. Just log back into your Facebook accounts. And so happy World Teachers Day. Bye, Chris. Bye, everyone. And
Thank you very much,
bye for now.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Yeah.